Hi everyone, this is Mr. Kennedy here. So today I'm going to start making some different how to draw videos, and today we're going to start with SpongeBob. So here we go. All right, to get started, I'm going to want a brand new page of my sketchbook. I'm going to be using a mechanical pencil. I have an eraser, and eventually I'm going to be using this fine tip marker. One thing I do want to stress to us before we get started is today we want to be drawing lightly with our pencils. There is a big difference between sketching lightly, not using a lot of pressure, and sketching darkly, you applying a lot of pressure with your pencil and getting these dark lines. Eventually, we are going to trace our light lines to get them this dark. But some of these lines we're going to erase, so we want to start with keeping them light. All right, let's get started. So for SpongeBob, we first want to start with kind of his body. Now I'm going to start with kind of a square shape, but it's not going to be a perfect square. So I'm going to start with a long line going across my paper. And then I'm going to bring it down, but I'm not going to bring my lines down straight. I'm going to bring them in a little bit. This is almost like a trapezoid. Very slight indent. In fact, that one's angles a little too much, so I'm going to change it up. And then I can bring it over. And that's going to be my general body for SpongeBob. Underneath this part of the trapezoid, I'm going to just bring down my lines nice and straight for where his clothes are. So this is going to be his shirt and pants. We'll just close it off. This one can be more of a normal, kind of a rectangle. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a slight line down the middle to separate the left and right side of SpongeBob. Now if I'm going too fast for my friends at home, you can always pause the video to try and catch up. So this being the middle of him, and on one side I'm going to have one little pant leg, and he doesn't really have long pants. They're kind of almost like shorts. So we're just going to draw a little, kind of a U shape. A long U. One on each side. We're also going to draw kind of a little triangle shape that's going to come out of his side. Now it's weird, his sleeves for his shirt don't actually touch his shirt. They actually come out of the side of him. And we're going to bring that in kind of like a little, like upside down R shape. We're going to bring it in right before we get to his clothes, his actual clothes. All right. So now SpongeBob has very large eyes. So we want to start to set those up on our paper. So I'm going to draw one line going across the top of my SpongeBob. This is going to be for the top of his eyes. The bottom of his eyes should be at least about here. They're very big, at least a solid almost half of his body. Afterwards, I'm going to make another little line for show where his mouth will end. This will be where the bottom of his mouth will be. And this will just be kind of his body. So, next, one thing we might do is we might start to give him sketching where his arms and legs will be. So I'm just going to give him some little lines. We're going to make these more realistic later, but just so we have something to start with. Next thing, before we start getting into his face, SpongeBob does not have straight lines. He does for his clothes, but where his body is, with the sponge, we want to give him a wiggly line. So I'm just going to go around my trapezoid shape now and just kind of go over with a darker line, but also making sure that line is squiggly, going up and down, lots of ups and downs. I'll make sure that goes all the way around him. And I like to turn my sketchbook around while I'm doing that. That makes it a little bit easier for me. It might not be for you, but to each their own. So now I want to start with two giant circles for his eyes. Now they are going to touch this center line. His eyes are very large and they're very close to each other. So we're going to start with two very large circles. One on one side, one on the other. And again, we want to make sure those circles are just barely touching that middle line. His eyes are very big and they are very close. Again, you can see me, I'm going around a lot of these shapes more than once. Again, some of them I'm going to eventually darken, the others I'm going to erase. Now I do want to put some smaller circles inside of these. We're going to do one kind of medium shaped circle and then a smaller one right in the middle for his pupil. And that part we're eventually going to color in black. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Again, kind of a medium-sized circle with a smaller one in the middle that we will color in black. Now his nose. Because his nose is pointing towards us, we're not going to see how long it is. Instead, we're really just going to have kind of a circular shape. So I'm going to start right here on that in-between line. I'm going to kind of circle around. Now this part's going to be tricky because it's got to go over part of his eyes, and then we're going to bring it down just a little bit. Now, his mouth. SpongeBob has very high cheeks that cover up a corner of his eye. So we're going to make kind of a little N shape, a diagonal N. Again, that's going to go over part of his eye. Now from inside, kind of like the middle of that N shape, we're going to make a big U. A really stretched out U. Now underneath that, we're going to make an even bigger one. Oop, I messed up a little bit. That one a little too low. I'm actually going to bring this one up a little bit. Let's clean that up. Even teachers, we make mistakes, and that's why we have the eraser, and we're drawing lightly so that we can erase them when they happen. Let's make that a little more like that. Yeah, that looks better. We'll just, again, clean up these edges. Much better. All right, so now if we keep that kind of middle line going down SpongeBob, we know he has two giant teeth. One on the left, one on the right. And we want to kind of, I'm putting mine at a little bit of, tiny bit of an angle. You can make yours straight, but he only has two big teeth right on top. And the background, let's give him a little tongue. So we're going to make one little loop, and then we're not going to bring it down, but we're going to close it on the other side. Now, SpongeBob also has this kind of a W shape underneath his mouth where his teeth sit. Oh, he has a little red mark from where his teeth sit outside of his mouth. So we're just going to make a little line there later for when we're coloring. Next, he has 3 little dimples on each cheek, so we can mark those out. We can also, SpongeBob has holes in him. He is a sponge after all. So I like to do one on the left corner, or the right corner, a big one, and a little one for each of the other 3 corners. All right, let's come down to his clothes. So now, again, we have this rectangle shape, and right in the middle of it, we're going to draw another line going across. Again, I'm going to make this line very lightly. Part of it I'm going to end up erasing. Now, if we still have that kind of that middle line separating him, we know that we're going to want his collar for his shirt. So we're going to make an upside down triangle. So I'm going to come down a little bit and then bring it over. Come down a little bit, and then bring it over. Next, we want to give him his tie, so let's start with kind of a little bottom of a circle. That's all we're going to see because the rest will go up here. And then we're going to make a long diamond shape. So we're going to come down this way to the top of his pants, and then we're going to bring it in for the rest of that diamond shape. And then we can just darken the rest of the line for where his pant line is, and then he has a little bit of a belt. So we don't see the whole belt. All we see is really 4 rectangles, 2 on each side of his tie. All right, almost there. One thing I forgot to do earlier is SpongeBob does have eyelashes. So on top of each eye, we're just gonna make 3 little lines going up. I'm gonna do that on both eyes. All right, now back to his arms. Now his arms are gonna be, I'm gonna draw his arms down by his side. You can have his arms going up. It is totally up to you. Now, once I get to this shape, once I get to his hand, I'm gonna start with kind of almost like a little bean shape. So I'm gonna start going in towards his body, almost like I'm making an 8, the number 8. But the bottom is a lot longer. But I'm not gonna close that 8. Notice I stop. Now on this side, I'm gonna make a line that loops around. And now after that, I'm just gonna make a few more of those little loops. SpongeBob only actually has 4 fingers, including his thumb. He has the thumb and 3 other fingers. Once we get that 3rd finger, we can close his hand. Again, on the other side, it's gonna be kind of the opposite. So again, we're gonna make that bean shape. We're gonna start with it coming in towards his hand or his body. On the other side, we're gonna start with that big loop, then a smaller one, and close his hand. Now for his legs, fairly easy. He just has very straight, long legs. So I'm just gonna kind of trace around that line I made before, just to make it a little bit thicker. Less of a stick, more of a leg. And we can close off the bottom of his feet right there. And SpongeBob has these very high socks on. Well, maybe not that high. But he has very tall socks that come up on his leg. So let's mark those off. And then he has a red stripe and a blue stripe on both socks. So we're just gonna start with line and pencil still. We will color it later. Now for his shoes, this part can be a little bit tricky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to curve around the bottom of his ankle. I'm going to make it just kind of like with a little smile line. Now I'm going to make another line, a little loop, one, and then a teeny tiny one. So notice there's a big one, a little one. It almost looks like a number 3. On the other side of this shoe, I'm going to do another loop. I'm going to stop there. Now this one, I'm going to bring it around a little bit, and then it's going to come up almost to make like a point, and then it's going to come down, and we want a big loop. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little highlight on his shoe. So I'm going to make a kind of a little triangle shape right there. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, but we're going to make it go in the opposite direction. So this one will be more of a backwards 3. But again, we want big loop, and then tiny one. Big loop. Now let's bring this one over. Let's round it up. A little point. Oop, I made that a little too far. And again, I want to make sure I put a little highlight on his shoe. And like that, we have SpongeBob. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my pencil down, and I'm going to come back to my fine tip pen. You can use a pen, a fine tip marker also works, black colored pencil, or you can go again and apply some pressure with your pencil. It's going to look like I'm doing this kind of fast, but really I'm taking my time, I'm doing this slowly, but when you see this, it's going to be fast forwarded. Hey guys, I hope you all had fun today drawing SpongeBob. If you want, you can pause the video here to use the same colors. You do not have to though. Next video, we will be drawing something new. I hope you guys had fun, stay safe, and keep drawing.